When I was growing up, I had this really unhealthy approach to success. What I would do is I would try to estimate what the minimum standard of effort needed was, and then I would go after my goals based on that. Now, the inevitable effects of this method of lethargy was usually failure in the form of reality or the world responding with negative feedback, usually in the form of something like bad grades or goals that were left out of reach. So what I would do is I would try to reset that minimum standard of effort just a little bit higher, and then I would try again. That experience of failing and trying again was a persistent reminder that I had to make improvements, not just to the amount of effort I was putting into it, but to myself and my character. I had to learn what hard work actually looks like and to stop embracing this pattern of laziness if I wanted to avoid the negative consequences of my bad attitude. In other words, I was trying to find success in a world that didn't exist, a world that would provide positive feedback where it wasn't deserved. Instead, I discovered the world as it actually is. It provided negative feedback to teach me how to conform to it rather than it to my wishful assumptions. Now imagine if, while I was trying to find success with that approach, some benefactor like maybe a parent stepped in and interrupted that cycle of consequence that provided me with the feedback I needed to adjust my behavior. What if, out of a desire to help me avoid negative consequences, they paid off one of my teachers so that I didn't have to face the experience of getting bad grades? If that kind of thing happened, then I would have been spared the process that was at times painful but necessary to teach me the lessons that I needed to learn to become a better and therefore happier person. And likely at some point, the consequences that the real world was trying to communicate to me would eventually catch up with me at a time when the stakes were a lot higher than just bad grades. This got me thinking about leprosy for some reason, because I remember being surprised to find out that the disfigurements that we're familiar with that disease aren't caused by like flesh-eating bacteria or something, but rather the infection affects the nerves of the victim so that they don't feel pain. So as a result, they become prone to injuring themselves without knowing it, which causes progressive disfigurement. Think about that. Without pain as a feedback mechanism in our biology, we will literally erode our own bodies with carelessness. Our problem as human beings is that we are wishful thinkers. We want to believe in a world that will conform to our expectations. Instead, we encounter a world that provides feedback to us to help us conform to it, which is why it's so important to be able to receive that feedback, even if it's painful. So often that pain is the result of our assumptions getting adjusted, and until we adjust them, we will continue to experience the negative consequences that can produce pain. Somewhere along the way, we embrace this idea that compassion means preventing the experience of that pain. But what that actually produces is a pattern of making the same mistakes without ever getting the feedback that we need to tell us that they are mistakes. It's like calling leprosy compassionate because it numbs us to physical pain. That's why I have such a tough time with concepts like safe spaces. The world is not comprised of safe spaces where we never have to hear things that we don't like. The real world is full of negative feedback to help us to learn and grow within it. True compassion helps people encounter necessary feedback in order to help them make adjustments so that it doesn't happen to them again in more painful or consequential ways. The etymology of the word compassion means to suffer with somebody. It means you see what they're going through, and then you walk alongside them as closely as possible so that you experience their suffering too. It doesn't mean that you remove all forms of suffering that can lead to growth and maturity. Now, if you think that I'm advocating a do-nothing approach towards people who need help, then I'm not explaining myself very well. I'm also not trying to say that all suffering is self-inflicted. What I'm saying is that compassion, true compassion, means journeying with somebody along the long, hard road rather than a shortcut away from their suffering. Compassion is not a virtue of quick fixes or avoiding necessary truths. And if you're a Christian like I am, you might be asking yourself how it is that you're called to respond in the name of compassion. And I think that the answer comes in the example of Jesus. Jesus, and by extension God, did not come to remove all of our sufferings. He identified the condition of mankind and then chose to enter into it by walking alongside us and suffering with us in dramatic fashion. And then he told us to pick up our own crosses and follow him. That's what true compassion looks like. It points the way to authentic freedom and deliverance without fear of the suffering that we may have to experience together as we walk side by side. Thank you guys for watching that. If you enjoyed that, then please like it and share it and subscribe and come follow along for more content. And if you want to support the making of these videos, then please consider supporting the business that makes them possible. Holdsworth Design is a digital marketing and communications company that specializes in web design, print design, branding, videography, and all that kind of stuff. So, and this is with a special emphasis on churches and ministries as well. So if you know somebody that needs those services, then please consider passing that along to them, and check out the website, which is www.holdsworthdesign.com.